Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Knowledge Panel, episode 16. And today we're talking about SEO for YouTube and podcasts. And I guess that's going to be promotion as well. So welcome, everybody. Thanks to another episode. I'm really quite excited about the panel I've got in here because I got a little bit lucky quite late on there with the panel, and I'm going to ask Emma to introduce herself first because I think you seem to be famous compared to my world. You're famous. Tell us about yourself, Emma.
Hi, Dixon. Thanks. I'm Emma Drew, Emma B. Drew, actually, and I have I founded a company called Online Media Biz, and basically I consult on YouTube. And my background is that I am a YouTube creator since 2009, and I have a YouTube channel called My Vox Songs, which is nearing 440 million views at the moment. And I've also got a few other smaller channels, and actually coaching on YouTube at the moment. So that's me.
So these are numbers. You're in a B2C environment, and that is incredible because I work in B2B, and those numbers are absolutely astounding. So, but one of my favorite webinar podcasts YouTubers is Dre. Dre, tell us about yourselves. I've been on your podcast once, and it was fantastic. It was a whole different experience. What do you tell us about yourself?
Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Dre de Vera, aka Dre, and I run a show called the SEO Video Show on YouTube, where I curate SEO videos released in the past week into about 1-minute clips. I mean, my favorite part of the show is when I get to introduce my guests, and like Dixon was talking about, it was great introducing him on the show.
So he did a thing where he was promoting the one where I was on his show, and his video for the promotion was so good that's been on my blog for the rest of my days, really, actually, on the homepage. So because I didn't, I've got a TEDx presentation. It's not as good as what he did. So there we go. Mark connects all the dots together, the technology behind some of this stuff. Mark, tell us about yourself and where you come from.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm Mark Asquith. I run a company called Captivate, which is a podcast distribution, syndication, marketing and monetization platform. So we allow independent creators to distribute their audio content, measure the efficacy of it, and of course, grow their audience in innumerable ways. So we do that with tens of thousands of podcasters around the world and serve hundreds of millions of downloads every single month. So we see the range of happenings in the podcasting world.
It's brilliant. I think we've got a really nice, balanced and real expert panel here. We've got somebody B2C, B2B, and then tech side as well. But I can't go too much further without introducing my producer as well, who's not a million miles away from being pretty cool himself on I don't know about cool, David, but anyway. David, have I missed anything out?
You've got a nice balanced panel. I'm the unbalanced one. So I just want to say to anyone listening on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, make sure you try and join us live for next time. You can go to theknowledgepanelshow.com, sign up, try and be part of the live audience as well, and you can ask questions as well. And of course, if you're watching live, make sure you subscribe through your favorite podcast player, and hopefully you can listen to past episodes as well.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, David. And guys, before we jump into my own questions and stuff, what I wanted to do was just ask you if you're going to be a podcaster or a YouTuber, and you've got one tip for SEO or one tip for promotion that you think people haven't got time to wait the whole 45 minutes for, what would you go for? I'm going to jump with you, Dre. Where would you go first? One tip for people to take away before they start.
One tip for SEO is to definitely do your keyword research, right? You want to make sure, if you want to rank on Google, you want your videos to rank on Google, make sure there are videos on Google already ranking. Make sure the tab of videos are on the YouTube search. If you look at it, if there's a tab that says videos, that's really close to the very beginning. Those are great ways to go after ranking for.
Okay, cool. Mark, do you want to jump in?
Sure, I'm going to talk about this from a podcasting perspective. So many people do so many different things to try and butcher their way up the rankings. The simple fact is that, the main podcast apps out there right now are still only looking at podcast title, episode title, and author tag, and they're doing so in a very honest way. So they're not looking for keyword stuff in, they're looking for quality content and very well thought out titling, much speaking much to what Dre mentioned there about keyword research. So whilst that is subject to change and whilst that is developing every single day, those three things, your podcast title, episode title, and your author name, are just the most vital parts.
Okay, great. Emma, got a thought?
I think, yeah, sure. I think coming from the kind of thumbnails perspective, if you think about the key things that you need to remember, there is obviously your thumbnail has to be perfect, and maybe you should have like the text of your title on there. But the key thing is to have the words or the keywords in the title, description, and tags of your actual video. And it's probably best to front load your title with the absolute keywords. So for example, if you're doing something on baking a chocolate cake, for example, you want to say something like chocolate cake for the best experience or something, so you can be a bit creative. You don't want to be too dull. But I think just get the word up front. I don't know if you agree with me there, Dre, but you probably will have your own opinion on that.
Oh yeah.
Well, you've got 400 million viewers, so we're not going to argue with most of the things you're going to say, Emma. So
yeah, we might all be under 4, but
I think that's interesting. Though the keyword research is an interesting angle, though, because I think a lot of SEOs, or even SEOs, even people who reckon that they're pretty good at SEO, sometimes take keywords a little bit too, they go too far down the I've got to go for this keyword because there's a lot of people searching for it. But if this keyword is not relevant to what your content is doing, then please don't. I mean, I'm sure there's an awful lot of people that are searching for engines, and I do a search engine optimization podcast. I should not be trying to optimize around engines because it's completely the wrong concept. I mean, Dre, do you see that happening? Do people go, a little bit too far down the keyword stuff and then try and write for something that's completely irrelevant?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is something where I feel you should really, really, really go long tail, right? I mean, this is where it's at because you're trying to, especially with videos. YouTube is an educational search engine where you want to. A lot of people search for how-tos and stuff like that. So that's something where you want to make sure you try to answer those questions with these long tail type of keywords.
Okay, so how-tos is a good example, I would guess, on here. So, and because you do that really well with short videos as well, don't you? Because you can sit there, give them a snappy, quick answer to a single question. Whereas, I guess the knowledge panel kind of tries to go a little deeper into one subject for 45 minutes around search, obviously. Is one approach better than the other? I mean, have you got any ideas of long form content versus short form, Mark? Because you've got some stats on this, probably.
No, we haven't. It's really difficult to get. What I will say is you've got two distinct opportunities when it comes to podcasting. You have the opportunity to go long form, and if you think about how pretty much every single one of the big 3, 4, 5 distribution outlets. So if we think Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, if we think Facebook in the future, but we'll not talk about them for now. The long form is very, very interesting to them because what they're doing is transcribing. We talked about this off air a little bit. They're transcribing the speech. They're doing speech to text, and what they're doing is they're not making that transcript available. What they're doing is they're analyzing that for long tail. So feasibly, if you are relatively well considered when it comes to creating your long form content, that one piece of 30-minute audio content could feasibly rank for a range of long tail keywords in a related fashion. The other thing that you've got, which I think is fascinating, and this speaks to that point that Dre so eloquently made at the beginning about this video tab, is that because they're doing that, Google in particular is a huge opportunity for short form. Now, what they're doing is they're forcing people to surface episodes as opposed to shows. So they really aren't interested in subscriptions or follows. They are really interested in, as we know Google always are, here's the answer to the thing that you've asked us. And if that happens to be in a short form audio bite, this is such a nascent opportunity. If you can, do what you did with video, do the same with audio. So the reason that I say that, and I know it's quite a long digressive answer to a degree, is that podcasting sort of falls into this weird area where, you know, YouTube does really well with that entertaining, shorter form content. You know, they sold Cobra Kai because TV companies do that better, you know? So podcasting is weird because there are people like us doing short form, great content to rank and to do really well with it. There's also law. There's also business wars that are big narrative stories. There isn't a space for short form podcast and long form podcast like there is for video. So it's a really different approach, I think.
Okay. That's really interesting, because I mean, if you know, obviously this whole knowledge panel show is sponsored by Inlinks, and Inlinks is all about breaking text down into underlying entities and concepts, you know. But if you're saying that, you know, the Google is going through our content, listening to these words, converting them into text, then it's going to be running its natural AI over that content. So it's going to easily break down what we're talking about into the underlying concepts. So I definitely want to talk about, you know, internal links on this podcast. I definitely want to talk about, you know, schema on this podcast. You know, I may be going a little bit off when I'm starting to talk about children's shows on the podcast, but you know, the content then becomes really, really important, does it? Because Google can then very easily match what's been said on the show to the query of the user to find that answer, which is what they're trying to do. I mean, do you find, Emma, when people are coming through to your content, do you find longer shows work or shorter shows, or do you have a very, very specific format?
Well, originally it was very much sort of a 3-minute animated video, so most of that would have been watched, and then things moved on. But I'm going to talk about the podcast that I have, Confessions of a YouTuber, because my interviews are around 40 minutes to about 50 minutes, and I recently thought that I should actually chop them up and break them up, because it's like such valuable nuggets of information from I think so far about 10 different very, very high profile YouTubers, but I haven't actually done the work to the search engine optimization work, because everything takes work, right? And you have to rank it, and I haven't got around to that yet. And I've even had comments on some of those videos, the podcast videos, because I put them on YouTube, and they're also on available on Spotify and everything. And they've said, "Oh, I've just found this. I can't believe I'm, you know, CD Dog is on doing this interview," and it's because I haven't done the work to get it up the search engine for people to find it. So people coming across the interviews and they've said, "How come you've got such high profile people, but I haven't done the work?" So it says a lot, because basically there's lots of potential there, and that's long form. But I did find that I need to chop them up probably and republish them as smaller podcasts.
That's something you do very well, Dre, actually, I think, you know, because your podcast, there is a long form version of most of your podcasts, but most people don't see that. They see you tweeting a 30-second segment for the whole thing. I mean, is most of your promotion done around those short segments, or is it, you know, or is it the long-term SEO that gets you your traffic?
Oh, I do both. Of course, long form, I've optimized all my descriptions, and right when I go live, I mean, everything's there, from the, you know, adding the keyword, the title, to the thumbnail, to the descriptions, and even to things that those are for like the live streams, right? And when you click these things up, you can really, really segment these things out now, where Google is even doing, or even YouTube is now doing chapters, right? YouTube chapters. So I feel like the long form content is even becoming, it can become more popular, because YouTube, Google and the YouTube are already going to chop things up in chapters and finding those key moments to share out. I mean, if you're not time stepping yourself, they're going to do it automatically.
And a chapter for you is what? Is seconds, minutes, or, you know, how long would a chapter be in one of your epics, if that's what we're going to call it?
Well, I mean, my chapters would be the parts of the shows, right? Because I mean, in the very, very beginning, I do like very snippets of different types of videos that I collect from from YouTube. I mean, I played some of Mark's videos on there, sharing some of those videos. It's you find the top videos, and then I can clip those and have those as chapters, or even as those as the timestamps, and then to the actual interview with you share and stuff like that.
So putting those timestamps in is something that you spend some time on making sure you do, right?
Yeah.
You do that as well, Emma? or you think you should, and you don't get round to it.
Well, I used to do it with my other one. So I would do big compilations. I might have a 50-minute compilation of lots of nursery rhymes, for example, and I would timestamp that definitely. And then with the newer one, I'm just sort of warming up to sort of getting that one back off the ground. But I would definitely do that. But I'd have to listen to it again. I'd have to know that there were certain nuggets of information, and I knew there was a nice clean break to the next bit of the sort of the content, so that it was properly chaptered, if you like. And that chaptering is fairly recent, I think, isn't it? So yeah.
Okay, so well, let's move on to this question that actually, Mark, you made obvious, really. I want to do a better job of seeing which channels are giving me exposure and which ones aren't. So I go out and we use Captivate to syndicate out to the different channels, but I can't find any way really of comparing visibility between the channels. Are all the channels just keeping that really tightly to themselves and not allowing you to build any APIs that can pick up the number of views on, or listens on iTunes versus Spotify and things? Or is that just something that, is everybody having this problem, or is there some better ways that we can approach this?
Well, I think it's about breaking down what you actually want to measure. If we think about, every outlet is a closed ecosystem. Let's consider that every one of the podcast directories is essentially a YouTube in and of itself, insofar as it's got its closed walls, it's got its boundaries, it's got its inbuilt analytics. So you can inevitably get more data from those because you can log into their platforms, Podcasters Connect, Spotify dashboard, and you'll get their information. Now, what a hosting platform tends to do is it will measure the range across all of the outlets. So we get pinged with user agents, we get IP data, we get lots of different data points that we can then compare and analyze. So we can tell you where your files have been downloaded, through what app, and so on and so forth. Like all that's kind of good stuff. So yes, you can track all of that. That's kind of the first thing. What you can't tend to track very reliably is plays. Unless you control the ecosystem yourself, you can't track drop-offs. Like this is why YouTube's a closed ecosystem. If people listen on the web using the web player, a podcast web player, we can track your drop-off data, we can track your repeated minutes. Like we can do all that stuff that YouTube does, and we do that a lot. Probably the more pertinent way to look at this from a promotional aspect is, they're all results. They're all outcomes. Well, I think there's a lot of missing data around click-throughs, around the efficacy of promotion, and so on and so forth. So David absolutely nailed the wrong way to do it earlier. He said, go and listen wherever you get your podcasts. That's about as measurable as like, I don't know, just spaghetti just floating around. Like, how much do I need? What you could do, David, using Captivate is we try and funnel links and your calls to action through something specific. So you could use something like we've got attribution links. So if you say something like, go to whatever, sparkofrebellion.com/listen, we give everyone a listen link. That's tracked. And then things like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Player FM, Amazon, Facebook, all those link clicks are tracked as well. So you can start to, if you think about being marketers, you can start thinking about, what's my funnel look like? What does my open rate and my click-through rate look like? But
right, okay.
I say in jest,
I saw you doing
problem.
I saw you doing the attribute. I saw the attribute thing on Captivate just before I came in, because I haven't been. I'm useless at my end of things because I'm a link builder at heart. But so you're doing these redirect links on all of those, and then tracking clicks on those links. But of course, that's still not going to get me a full picture, is it? Because there's going to be plenty of people who just will only ever look at Spotify, and they're going to say, right, I want to go on an SEO show or a kids nursery rhyme show or whatever, and they're just going to search that within Spotify and within the ecosystem. So it's still not going to give you a particularly effective way of comparing different mediums, for example, because the medium is going to be affected by how many times you promote each attributed link on that basis. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, I think. Is it
Yeah,
not?
it's a tough one because it's a tough one because of the searches. You know, if someone, you know, there are two lots of podcast listeners. Some people prefer an integrated experience where my books, my audio books, my music, my podcasts are all in one place, and they're the Spotify people. We've seen demographic data about those very recently, much younger people. And then you've got the kind of more fragmented people that, you know, Apple Music is where I get my music, and Apple Podcasts is where I get my podcasts. And then it's behavioral search. A lot of people, what they'll do is, you know, Google's the start page of the internet for my mum and for me, and probably for a lot of us. And, you know, so I search on Google, and then it's actually Apple Podcast that comes up. And do I search long tail? Do I search show name? Do I search episode name? This is why podcasting is such a fascinating challenge. And there are companies that are trying to solve this, you know, Chartables and pod sites. But then when you start to overlay privacy problems that are going to start kicking in over the next year, you know, this is a huge thing. It really is. It's fascinating. And I think, not to take too much time up, the key thing here is for the creator to own the journey, you know, to almost control as much of that journey as you can.
Which is what I'm trying to do with the name of the show in the first place. So calling it the Knowledge Panel is related to the industry sector that I'm in. You got SEO video show, Dre, and you're trying to own the space by the name of the show is trying to own the space as well. You know, so and you got the, you know, confessions of a YouTuber, pretty much the same thing there. You're trying to get the insider track on YouTubers, and so I think owning the show name is probably your best bet at owning the market that you're in, over and above just the keywords. Although Dre, you've done both obviously in that one as well. But even so, you know, so I just before I hadn't realized, I don't think that Google search on podcasts has got enough market share yet for themselves. And the reason I say that is I put in SEO podcasts into Google. Now, maybe because I'm sitting in Malaga at the moment, not in the UK or the US, but I didn't get any adverts coming back. That's usually a sign that Google doesn't think they've got enough market share yet, because you know, it came back with a nice carousel of SEO podcasts. It came back with a bunch of organic results, but no paid results, which suggests to me that people are not looking on Google for podcasts, which leads me to say, well, is that right? Or do you think a lot of people are? And if they're not, you know, where are they looking? I'll go Dre for that, if that's all right. So I'll come to you, Emma, because I left you here because I was going all techie on SEO, and we'll go and find out where they do look, because they're going to be looking on YouTube.
Well, I mean, personally, when I look for podcasts, it is on my Spotify and on my my Google Play, my Google Podcast app on my phone. So that's where I personally look for certain podcasts, not necessarily Google.
Yeah. Okay. So so they really haven't got the market share yet, or maybe they're getting it from Google Play. You know, Emma, where do you think people are going? Where do you think the market share is? Who owns the purse strings?
Well, I think it's like, in my case, I would look up in Spotify or my podcast app on my phone. I would go directly there. I think in the case of my own podcast, I wasn't sure. I had a lot of anxiety about where people were going to find this. People aren't going to search Confessions of a YouTube, for example. However, that's why I then transferred it onto YouTube, because it's obviously huge in terms of, I actually knew how to do the SEO, even though I haven't really been very good at it at the moment. But I know the back end. I know
we all have cobbler's shoes, so don't feel bad about that.
I've got work to do, but yeah. So that's why I thought, well, I need to expand it. So I'm going to throw it on what I know. But I do believe that people will probably, and I maybe need to step up my SEO on my podcast, on podcast and Spotify and all that kind of thing, because maybe they are looking up YouTube podcasts and stuff.
I mean, Mark, do you have no relative market share? Because you've got all those. Well, do you have market share at least in how many of your customers are publishing to each of those different channels? Because how many channels do you publish to? About 15 of them?
Oh, more than that. It's anywhere that supports RSS. Yeah, there's hundreds of them. Yeah, Apple and Spotify are dominant. That's a fact. You know, we see that, we know that. And it's a widely reported industry stat that Spotify is catching up amongst a certain subtype of people. And I think this is the thing. I think what we have to really understand with podcasts is that podcasts are an entertainment medium as much as they are a learning medium. Like, one of the biggest challenges in podcasts is entrepreneurs getting into it and selling podcasts as some golden entrepreneurial bullet. It's just rubbish. And the fact of the matter is it's a content channel like anything else. However, with podcasting, like I said earlier, you've kind of got all of this content, the entrepreneurial, the short form, the teaching, the education, mixed in with like Jerry Anderson doing First Action Bureau and originals from Wondery and Dr. Death and Inside Star Wars. And so people's behavior tends to focus less on problem solving searches in certainly in what we've seen recently. And there's much more of a mix of, right, where do I get my audio entertainment when I get it? Which is when I'm running, which is when I'm at the gym, you know, back in those days, in about 2009. Where do I get it when I'm driving? So it's different. I need quick access because I'm usually like driving or doing I'm at a red light. Where do I get this next thing? So we know Apple and Spotify, they're the big ones. You know, you can distribute to everywhere, but Apple and Spotify are the big ones. And the key thing is that behavior. You know, a really great example of this is last week I was talking to someone, got no traction because they were putting the guest name first in their episode title. Unless I know the guest, I'm not going to do that at a red light and think, who's this person? So we've got to hook people. You know, that's a very big distinction.
I guess it's great if your guest is really famous, and then, you know, somebody's saying, you know, give me a video by, you know, I don't know, choose famous person here. I won't. Whatever I say, I'll annoy somebody, so I won't say anyone. But I guess then, as you say, it doesn't give you any traction for your own show because you're not building up your own brand. You're just feeding off the brand of the person that's coming in as a guest, I guess. Is that what you're saying, Mark?
And you're not also going to get the click. I mean, you know, even large guests don't really affect things unless you've got a large audience, because you know, as a percentage, if I got Arnold Schwarzenegger on my show, there'd still be as many people know about my show as if I didn't have Arnie on there. You know, so there's that sort of doesn't matter. It's whether his audience knows, or if I get Gal Gadot, it's whether her audience knows. So I think that the point that I'm getting at there is that it's more about the quick hook, insofar as I'm driving, I've got my screen, my little CarPlay screen. In that example I told you earlier, they put the guest name. Yeah. And then after that, they'd hidden just this absolute bullet of a gem, which was they'd put the title that no one could see, and it was, "There is no vaccine for homelessness." And this person was a photographer that photographed the homeless to raise awareness and for charity, and got really under the skin of some of the causes and the challenges. Like, they swapped that to the front of the title, and just instantly the downloads started going up. Because like, that's really telling. So yeah.
So Emma, you've had really big guests on your show. I think some of your shows, and you know,
yeah, I have.
So do those guests bring in an audience of their own, or not so much?
Not so much, actually. It's you know, things happen very, very fast, and obviously if you send someone the link, they'll try and push it out, and they do at the time, but it's not something that sort of lasts very long, if you like. It's sort of a moment in time, and then people are on to the next thing. So but I think the great thing is, because once you've got the content there, and if you do chop it up and it's still relevant, and say some of the tips that they give, I think that's when it can become valuable. So you can then take out a snippet, and then you can send the new podcast link, for example, or the YouTube link, whatever, to them, and then they'll be like, yeah, sure, and they'll tweet it out, whatever. So that could be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's something. Sorry, Dre.
Oh, no. I'd say I'm that total opposite. I'm banking on your guys' names. I got a bunch of searches from Dixon Jones on my channel. So I mean, I think SEO is such a smaller niche, a smaller industry, where I think like certain individuals, like, people wanted to actually listen to Dixon Jones, Ren Fishkin, you know, Neil Patel. I get those searches and traffic from those type of searches for my channel.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm sure I wasn't a very big draw, but thank you
you
very
are.
much for being kind, Dre. That's great. But one of those things you said in the car, it just strikes me that voice search sounds to me like something that we really need to understand as well if we're in this world, because people in cars anyway are going to say Alexa or Renault or Audi or whatever, okay, Mr. Car that talks to me, or Mrs. Car that that plays whatever I need, and they're just going to say something, so you've got to have something that is picked up by Alexa, I would guess, or tools like Alexa and OK Google. Do you do anything with that? Has anybody done anything with that to try and make sure that if they say, if I get in my car, well, if my car was clever enough to have a way to speak to it, I don't know if it does. I don't know. I don't use it. I'm approaching 60. I've gone to the end of my tether really now. But if I got in my car and said, hey car, play the SEO video show, would your show come up, do you think?
It should. I mean, when I've actually did it to my Google Home, I actually play with it. Hey, Google, play Paul Andre on YouTube. My actual personal channel goes up with my lo-fi videos that I put out, the music videos I put out.
You just proved it. Lovely done. Very clever. Okay, we'll say that yours works then, Dre. What about you, Emma? I mean, if somebody reads out your show on Alexa, does it work?
I haven't actually tried that, and I won't say anything now because it might just go off. But no, I'll have to give that a go. But I think
Alexa, play Emma B. Drew's playlist.
If you said, if it was like MyVox Songs, because that's quite an old brand, it's very much probably indexed, and it's been there for years on Google, so that would definitely show up.
Okay, but it strikes me that as we move forward, that's the only way people are going to engage with these things. I mean, I don't know how it is in the States, Dre, but right now my TV is so disjointed. When I try and go and see a show, we got BBC iPlayer here, we got ITV Hub here, we got Netflix, of course, and Amazon Prime and stuff like that. And it's really hard. They're not all joined together. So trying to get to my show seems to be like pressing buttons all over the place. Obviously, I haven't got a monitor for a keyboard for my TV. So it's going to end up that I'm just going to talk to a Google or Alexa to try and get my show. So we should probably maybe just bypass the keyboard altogether now, shouldn't we?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean,
all right, I'm getting far too philosophical then.
anything search, right? I mean, for me, as being an SEO person, I mean, I'm fascinated with search, so I'm trying to optimize for everything.
Of course, yeah. So you wanted to jump in, Emma?
Yeah, no, I was actually going to say, when it comes to TV, it seems like a really, really antiquated way of kind of doing things, because there's such a disconnect between your live searching on your phone and talking to Alexa or Google or whatever, and then you've got your TV, and it's suddenly you go back 10 years and go, what? I have to type a word with a remote control, and I just give it to one of the kids to do because I've got no patience to do that. Yep. And you're just sitting there wishing that you could just talk to your TV and say, just get this show on or whatever. So there's lots of opportunity there, definitely. And also we watch a lot of YouTube on TV. And I think the same applies with that. We're looking for stuff on there. It's so cumbersome. I don't understand why it has to be like that.
Okay, I'll move on a little bit and ask. Move sideways on now, because I kind of went a little bit off tangent a bit, but I still think voice search is the future for podcasts. Yeah. It's got to be. But can I ask about cadence? How important is it to get your podcast out regularly? How important, and if regularly, how often do you do it? Do you wish you did it faster? Do you always do it on the same day of the week, month, whatever, year? Have you got, well, I'll ask Dre and Paul, but maybe Mark, if you've got some stats in there of what people generally do, that'd be interesting as well. If you don't, that's fine. Or if you can't give them, that's fine as well. But Emma, how often do you get your podcast out? Do you try to do it regular?
Look, this is the real confessions of a YouTuber, because as a YouTuber, I haven't done one in over a year, and before COVID, and I've been doing them. I think I've been doing them at least once every 3 weeks or something like that. And because they're quite long, it was quite an investment of time. So I want to get back. So actually, I'm interested to hear what your answer is there.
Okay, but the difference is, of course, you've already got hundreds, how many up there already? So you've got an awful lot up there with an awful lot of impressions and views, which are generating traffic organically, I would imagine.
Well, I have. I mean, so the kids channel is very separate from the confessions of a YouTuber. So the kids channel is like, say, my old audience, and I don't work so much on that YouTube channel anymore because I am now entering the world of adults and talking to YouTubers and creators and influencers, and so I want to impart my knowledge of how they can move fast on YouTube and use all these techniques, SEO in particular. A lot of people kind of find it quite daunting, especially my audience. So just like to simplify it. So
okay, I'm putting mine out. Well, we're putting this one out one a month, and I'm putting another one out on sort of, but it's on a sort of different tangent, different subject every other 2 weeks. But that's about as much time as I can invest. That's my problem. Dre, I know, is investing a lot more time on the whole thing. You know, I mean, how often are yours going out? You do something every day.
Yeah, well, I mean, on YouTube, I post 3 times a week. On the first on Monday, I post like my promotion of what everyone learned last week, and then what's going to be happening this week. And then on Wednesday, I will post like a clip from the last week's show to play on. And then on Friday, I go live, and it's consistently every Friday, 12 p.m. because I want to have the most amount of visitors and viewers on the time I watch, right? So
Okay. So you're going out every week, Friday noon Pacific time, no doubt. Yeah. So so you're trying to catch the end of the days in the UK and people there. I mean, is that typical, Mark? Are people going out sort of a weekly, monthly, or is it absolutely disorganized?
It's disorganized. When you look at the industry, it's disorganized, but there's a consistent theme of consistency that works. So what I mean by that is that if you choose a schedule and you stick to it and you communicate it, it tends to work well. Again, it's like a TV show is a great example of this. Like Cobra Kai doesn't perform any worse than Coronation Street, and the schedules are different, but they're always consistent. And a movie will perform just as well as a TV series, because of the consistency and the type of media. So I think one of the challenges that people find with podcasting is that they measure the wrong number. So unlike YouTube, and when you talk to fantastic YouTubers like you guys, you look at the number of, or you look at the range of analytics per video, and you look, is that going the right way? And then obviously you step back and you look at the bigger picture as well. What podcasters do wrong most of the time is they don't look at that individual data. So they just want to up their monthly downloads, which then, Dixon, leads to people going, I'm going to do 1,500 a week, because then they get one download, because everything auto downloads, on Apple, for example, they get a download per episode and it inflates their monthly numbers. And then they wonder sort of, well, why can't I get a sponsor? Why am I getting no engagement? And it's because the big number's the wrong number. Once a week is the average. I will say that once a week is the average.
Yeah, I know I should do it for a lot more, but I haven't got the energy.
And what sort of length would you say is the best length, or the average length?
The average length, and this is just according to our own platform data, is around 20, 25 minutes. I have recently had a couple of experiments with my show where I used to be I created this show, like educating on podcasting, that was really just to experiment with it, right? So I did it 3 days a week, short form. That was 2 years ago, and now it's once a week, long form. And I get more downloads. I get more people downloading it when I do one episode every 2 weeks, as opposed to all of that other stuff that I did. And now I think that Emma, is because of it's staying at the top of the feed for much longer. So when people come into the feed, they're like, okay, this must be
they'll play the most recent one, basically.
Exactly.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay, so we're nearly at time already, but I wanted to get 2 questions in. One is getting links to your podcast a good thing? And if so, where do you link it to? Do you link it to the Captivate page, or do you link it to the well, is there a Spotify link? I don't know. And then the other question is promotion. If you're going to do some paid promotion, does that help things? If you give something an injection by paid advertising for your own show, I'll go with that question because I think it's a more relevant question to everybody. If I put up a show, well, I'll tell you what I do is we put up a show, and then we will spend a little bit of money on Facebook promoting the show on the podcast to give it a little bit of a buzz, so that the Spotify's or the Facebooks or the whatever can sit there and say, yeah, there's some traction for this, in the hope that it will then, catch on to some kind of organic stuff. But I've got no idea whether that's a good idea. All I can do is work out whether people are clicking on the link to watch the show, and I can't take any long-term metric from there. Is that a good idea or a bad idea? Paul, what do you reckon?
For me, YouTube, that's awesome. I mean, I actually do it myself, and it's something where you actually there's something where they say, you promote something within the first 24 hours and it'll show up within the algorithm. I actually do for videos that don't go live. I'll actually promote them as unlisted, and then trying to get them some views first, and then publish them. And then what happens? This is where I get a lot of my traffic, is by doing the strategy of putting little ads. My videos become suggested, like I organically become suggested videos on top of other videos.
Right. Yeah. That's doing the little ones. Yeah. Okay. Emma, have you ever played around with that, or you deal with such big stars that you don't need to do that?
not at all. I mean, I at the moment it's still a case of I get very confused as to which podcast link I should put. It's just not as straightforward, because I've worked on YouTube for so long. It's so straightforward. So it's such a learning curve, really. I have to say that, and it can be a bit daunting sometimes. So
Mark,
at the moment, all I'm doing is I will put my YouTube podcast link in whatever promotion I'm doing, and it just makes it easier for me, because I actually get quite confused.
Fair enough. And Mark, I'd say you're going to say just whatever you do, use attribution linking.
I think just use something you can measure. I mean, you can measure, you can measure the efficacy of sending to the YouTube version of the audio, and then put the subsequent directory links in the description. I mean, that you would get the same or a similar level of top level measurement from that one. Now, so I'm speaking purely to the audio apps here. I'm not talking about running ads, on Facebook and social through to YouTube. I'm talking, here is podcast episode on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That doesn't work. Now, what it does is it gets clicks, because inevitably that's how it will work. But what it doesn't do, it's proven. We've just been doing some work on this, actually. It's proven that simply does not result in listeners, and it doesn't return much. If you have budget for that, if you've got 10, 15, 20, 30 bucks a day, whatever, $1 a day, it doesn't matter. Spend that money on cross promotion. Find other podcasters. There's a whole talk we could go into on this one, but spend that money on cross promotion right now, as it is, and to the point of where you put your backlinks.
So what you're saying is I've got to get Dre and Emma on my show. That's what I need to do. That's
get them on. And then do a feed drop. Do a feed drop into their podcast feeds, Dixon. So put your trailer in Emma and Dre's feeds. Oh, vice versa.
I'll be on to you, Dre. Absolutely, I'll be on to you. Emma probably doesn't want my feed, but probably won't work for for her audience. But there we go, guys. We're already nearly at time. So, David, just before we end the show, what's happening next time round on our next show?
Sure. Okay. Next time round, we have got on Monday, the 15th of November at 4 p.m. GMT. We've got a show called WordPress versus Custom versus Easy Site Builder. So we're going to be exploring the pros and cons of SEO for different types of site builders, or whether you're more efficient not using any platform at all, just coding everything from scratch. Panelists from that one so far include John Alderson and also Russ Jeffrey from Duda. I'm going to have another panelist for that one as well. So 15th of November at 4 p.m. GMT for that one.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Guys, I really appreciate you coming on. I know it's you know, it's a lot of work that everybody puts on when they're coming onto panels and stuff, and I really do appreciate it. I've enjoyed enjoyed it a lot. I've learned a lot. I've also realized that I have a lot more to do for promoting my own channel, and I'm going to be putting some of these ideas into place. So just before we go, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they do that? Dre, obviously, it's the SEO video show.
Yep, just search video SEO on YouTube. You should find my channel. If you want to do some YouTube rankings, go search YouTube ranking factors on Google. You should find that video that I actually put out there. Be sure to check that out, seo.video/checklist. I have all the video SEO tips.
Fantastic. Mark, how do they find you?
The quickest way is just Twitter at Mr. Asquith. I can help with any podcasting related stuff. So at Mr. Asquith on Twitter. And
Emma, you've just written some books. Do we go and find that? Show
yeah,
the books.
Well,
do the plug.
Yeah, there's the plug. That's one actually for kids who are about 9+. That's called How to Start a YouTube Channel the Easy Way with Charlie and Friends. A little peek into that. So I spent most of COVID lockdown doing that book and released it early this year. And I've actually just I'm releasing that this week. It's the ultimate 1-hour YouTube channel starter kit. And it's for people who really sort of want to, obviously clearly want to get started, but want to get started in the right way. And I'll be putting up on my website called, it's onlinemediabiz.com. And you should find that there. And you can follow me on at Emma Drew Biz on Instagram. So, and also if you look up Confessions of a YouTuber on YouTube, you'll find the podcast, and you'll find it on Spotify and Apple and all of the rest of it. I wasn't very good at promoting.
Definitely gonna listen to one or two of them for sure. So guys, thank you ever so much for coming on. When the live button stops on this, you can still stay on for a couple of minutes if you want to. But everybody else out in internet world, thank you very much for coming along. Thanks very much for listening, and see you for the next knowledge panel.